I saw them.
Oh, yeah, I saw it. Yes, I have it. Thank you. Everybody here?
Yes, and we are.
Everybody here that's going to be here according to Sherry. Hi, Miss Mayor. Good evening. You're welcome.
And yours.
All right. Call to order, Historic Resources Preservation Board meeting, City of Lake Worth Beach, February 14th, 2024. Roll call, please. We could hear you.
Elaine DeRisso,
Here.
Laura Devlin,
Here.
Bob Dorenzo,
Here.
Nadine Heights, Ed DeVoe,
Here.
Ed LeBlanc.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Pledge of
Oh,
allegiance,
Valentine's.
please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any additions, deletions, reordering, approval of agenda?
There are no additions or deletions. There's no reordering.
Okay, can I get an approval of last meeting's minutes, please? No? They're not included. Okay. Swearing in of staff and applicants?
If you plan to give testimony this evening, please raise and stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say yes. Thank you.
Proof of publication?
There were no items needing publication.
Thank you. Any withdrawals or postponement?
No, Mr. Chair.
All righty. No unfinished business. Okay, so we go to our first case. HRPB 2300.
Mr. Chairman,
What? Sorry.
I want to speak about board disclosure.
Oh, sure. Sorry
I,
about that.
it's all right. I made an appointment and saw, Andy Greening on Monday afternoon to review the financials for, project number B or letter B.
Right.
So I just
And
wanted to disclose
so did
that.
I.
I did see
Yes.
that.
Thank you for that. And so did I. Disclose, the third case in front of us, case number 23001000211. I will be recusing myself from that. The person is a client and a friend. Now we can go to the first one. Okay, then. HRPB project number 2300100140 611 7th Avenue North. Annie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is a
Jan?
continuation from last month.
Yeah.
This is the roof replacement they were requiring they were proposing to replace with a metal roof. And the reason why we continued this is to be able to speak with the applicant, but the applicant is not here today. So
Okay.
we can continue with the presentation, but we already discussed a bit this and we wanted to hear the perception or perspective of the applicant. And we haven't heard so.
Has the applicant said anything to you regarding the situation where
Yes.
we are at this point?
So I have reached to the applicant after the meeting, letting him know that, the board wanted to hear their perspective and to be able to come to the next meeting. I provided the date and location. They said they'll be here. I haven't heard anything since again.
Okay. Now was he resolved to staff's opinion and or recommendation as far as a three-dimensional? He did not.
Yeah, no, we don't.
Okay. All right. So let's start.
Can,
Go ahead.
we tabled this last time, did we?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he had full opportunity to come here.
Yes.
Been going on for a year.
How long has it been going on now?
I'm sorry.
How long has it been going on?
So I believe that was last year that we
Last
started
year.
talking. Yes,
Yeah.
we started talking last year with the applicant. We've been in communication.
And you spoke to him recently.
Yes, after the last presentation, I emailed the applicant letting him know that, they should be at the next meeting because the board wanted to hear. their
And you heard
perspective.
back from him?
Yes, he said he'll be back, but I haven't heard anything.
The night is Valentine's night, it's tough for everybody. I mean, it's.
Yeah, but this has been going
I
on and
know.
on.
I know. I mean, I would like to, if you just give me one more shot. One more shot. The night is, I'm seriously, I almost missed this meeting, but I'll let you. I almost missed this meeting because it's Valentine's.
Well,
Yeah.
let's hear the presentation and then the board can discuss and we'll go from there.
Okay, all right, so.
It's a tough meeting.
This is the slide showing the location of the property. Next slide, please. So as we discussed previously, the structure was built in 1920s. So we don't have any original blueprints, but we have this property card from 1956. And then we can see that the existing roof at the time was a composite rolling roofing system. And then if we go to the next slide, in the 1970s, they replaced it with asphalt shingles and it remains so to this day. So next slide, please. So if we look at it, this is what the applicant proposed to replace the existing shingle roof. It's a standing seam metal roof. And we told the applicant that that is not appropriate. If we look at the historic preservation design guidelines, the appropriate roofing are either metal shingles, asphalt shingles, or rolling composition roofing. So we staff denied the application, telling him that asphalt shingles is not an appropriate replacement. I mean, a metal standing seam is not an appropriate replacement for asphalt shingles, and that's why they decided to come to the board.
So he still wants standing metal.
Yes, ma'am.
I grew up here and I know that a lot of those houses had metal roofs in the 60s. And I mean, I get what you say. I get what staff's saying, but also I get what the applicant want to do, because at the end of the day, he has to make sure his roof is insurable by the insurance company. And we don't have that guideline so we can have that roof.
No, we don't, because we follow the historical guidelines by the state and the federal government.
But is it?
These are our guidelines that were
understand.
adopted.
I understand.
So by us changing rules and regs that are brought down from the state and the federal level, we have to follow the guidelines.
I understand that, but the trouble is, I thought
It's historic resources preservation.
Yes, I get that. But
Okay.
I thought, I'm thinking that the historical preservation is want to maintain the structural integrity of the architectural structure. And you tell me, how do that interferes with the structural integrity of the historical preservation? Because we don't have it, because it isn't somewhere else in the state has that? I mean,
It's done by the state. It's guidelines by the national park.
in the state, he can't have it. As the city saying the same. He can't.
All the national parks, the guidelines that we go by. That's why the Historical Preservation Board, local, state, and federal, those are the guidelines. We messed with the state a few years ago to get a little more lenience on certain categories, with still getting what we get from the state as a municipality. Help me out here.
If we bend the rules, they're gonna interfere with what we get from the state. I mean,
Then
I'm not bend the rules. Maybe bend is the wrong terminology, but if we
defer.
thank you, sir.
I don't know, I'm thinking it works. My vocabulary is that big, but
Help us out here.
So, like Bob said, there are multiple levels of guidelines. The guidelines that we have were custom made for our city and comply with the state and federal regulations. We send all of our minutes as a certified local government to the state for their review. If they see that we start to or you all start to
Deviate.
deviate,
Okay.
we could potentially eventually lose our CLG status if
Yeah.
we aren't abiding by our own guidelines.
So it's a city guideline.
Yes, the design guidelines were custom made for the
For
city of
the city.
Lake Worth Beach, studying our structures, our history, our city.
Did we make them?
They were made, consultants were hired, they were made in consultation with the public and the Historic Resources Preservation Board at the time.
And how long ago?
Website is very specific.
I understand. We understand that. We get it all.
problem.
Mr. Chairman, how long ago?
2018.
2018.
I'd like to say something. And I understand where you're coming from, but when I agreed to be on this board, I had to do a lot of research and understanding because I was a novice. I'm a
Right.
citizen at large.
Right.
I've learned a lot in the past several months.
Right.
And one of the things that I learned is that these guidelines are not capricious. They're not made up just for, for giggles. They come actually from the Department of Interior
Right.
through the state, through our city,
Right.
to maintain the historic flavor
Integrity.
of our city, the historic nature of our city.
I understand.
And something that we all take pride in, I think. So I'm not comfortable with saying, whether or not I agree with something or disagree with something. That's not really what my role is. My role is to follow the guidelines
Oh, yeah,
and to apply them
Right.
in each case as fairly as I
Right.
can.
Thank you.
I understand.
Well, the other thing too, is you said, or there was an issue about it being, excuse me, not as hurricane proof or whatever, but I don't
Well,
think there's any issue with asphalt shingles.
Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
I said, I don't think there's, I don't think we're asking him to have a less structurally sound building by using asphalt shingles.
No,
It might mean he has to replace it again, like I have to replace mine now too, but it's also far less expensive than the metal one.
do y'all recommend a metal that he could use?
Yeah, metal shingles.
Metal
Yes,
shingle?
metal shingles is the next.
And so the sheet metal is just totally out.
Oh, we can use it. The design guidelines don't. approve those.
I have one comment.
Oh, sure.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things we need to be concerned about is consistency, because
Mhm.
when people come in here
Mhm.
over and over again, they want to bend the rules, and it's like somebody, well, this guy did it, and we've had people come in here
Right.
and give us little slideshows of their neighborhood and say, well, that house has it, and that house has it, and that house has it.
Exactly.
Even though they're not consistent with our guidelines.
Right.
So,
I-
we need to be fairly somewhat firm and consistent on these types of things. And
Right.
I mean, we certainly need to consider every case on its own merits.
Right.
But, we shouldn't be just,
Right.
giving people a pass without some extenuating circumstances.
And creating a precedent.
Don't think for a minute I want to give someone a pass. But when I drive through the city and I see some roof with metal sheet, metal,
Right.
and it has that particular roof on it, and it's in the historical district, and I know that roof hasn't been there for no more than 10, 15 years,
But
and all of a sudden,
but
how we got there.
Mr. DeVoe, the historic preservation has not been here that long. We have roofs, doors, garage doors, windows, things that have been put in prior to the establishment
Mhm.
of the historic board.
The historical board been how long?
2015.
The board as
I think
a
it's longer
separate
than
Well,
entity
No.
has been here for not as long. For a while, the board was combined with PZB and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah,
We first started designating locals, historic districts in about 2000, but COAs didn't get implemented until years after that, and that even took quite a while
Right.
to really get its footing.
okay.
To give you all a little bit of history on this issue, as of even a year or two ago, the dimensional asphalt shingle was not a straight approval as it is now. This board with previous membership had given staff the authorization after looking at this issue several times to say, that can be a staff decision. If they come in with this dimensional asphalt shingle replacement in this color, it can be administratively approved. We're good with that as a comparable replacement instead of the metal shingle. But the metal standing seam has always been against the guidelines, so those have not been
Right.
approved.
And we run into issues with the white tile roofs for the mid-century, which is basically above 13. Where asphalt is a replacement, yes. Asphalt shingle on the mid for the white tile.
We do run into issues with the white tile and alternatives for that and
Because
asphalt.
that is a big expense, and that was a big argument up here a few years ago because of the cost difference between your tile in the mid-centuries and the white three-dimensional. It just still comes down to cost.
It's a big difference.
Yeah.
I reviewed obviously the application. There's nothing in here in terms of concerns about cost by the applicant. I don't see anything in here in terms of concerns about the applicant being able to get insurance or not get insurance. None of these are the points that are made by the applicant. I think we've given this person a couple of opportunities to come before the board. I don't know why they're not here tonight. Whether or not it's difficult to get here at 6 o'clock or not. If I want somebody to make a decision on my house, I'd make sure I got here. So I think at this point, what I'd like to do is have us make a decision about whether or not we're going to pursue this and make a decision tonight without the applicant being here, or table it to next week. I don't see a need for further discussion.
All right, let's have a motion or some type of motion. 1 second, please. All good?
Oh, attorney, I'm sorry, turn it off.
All right. Go ahead.
I'd like to move that we make a decision on this tonight.
Okay, so let's hear a motion.
Oh.
Right on the back.
I move to deny HRPB project number 23-00104140. Excuse me. For a COA for roof replacement for the property located at 611 7th Avenue North, because the applicant has not established by competent substantial evidence that the application complies with the City of Lake Worth Beach land development regulation and historic preservation requirements, and has not participated in both opportunities to present information that would indicate otherwise.
I second the motion.
Okay.
second the motion.
We have a first and a second now before we go to a vote. But can we basically allow the three-dimensional asphalt shingle at this point? Okay, so would you amend your motion to basically allow him to use, no,
Mr. Chair,
stop,
you
I'm
don't
just
even
asking.
need to add that
Don't
to
even
it.
need to.
That's
That's just what it is.
Approval,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Do we need to call for public
Any
comment?
no's? Do we need public comment? Anyone? Okay. All right, so that passed unanimously.
Was it unanimous?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, HRPB project number 23-00100138, 623 North Ocean Breeze.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is another roof, slightly different from that last one. Some of you may have been here for the previous times that we've talked about this. So this is 623 North Ocean Breeze. You can see the location right there. So this is a home that has existing historic metal shingles. So the last one we were talking about asphalt, this one we're talking about existing metal shingles. This is a 1939 wood frame minimal traditional house designed by a local architect, Edgar S. Wortman. These galvanized metal shingles were part of the original design. So this property did come to the board a few times already. It came in 2022, got continued due to lack of quorum, and then voided that application. Reapplied in May of 23, came to the board in July of 2023, and was continued by the board. The board had asked for the applicant to come back with an economic hardship application. Staff met with the applicant in September to discuss that a bit more. And then we got that hardship application in January of 2024, and here we are today. So that's the long timeline of this roofing situation. So in our design guidelines, for this wood frame minimal traditional, it does talk about most of these roofs were originally metal shingle. And per our design guidelines and, our federal equivalents with the Secretary of the Interior standards, appropriate replacements should match the original features in design, color, texture, other visual qualities, and wherever possible, materials. So, exterior alterations, obviously, we have visual compatibility criteria in our land development regulations. You guys see these all the time in your staff reports that we give to you. So these criteria don't address cost. So typically increase in cost of material is not necessarily part of your decision-making unless, like we're discussing tonight, it creates an unreasonable economic hardship for the property owner. So again, roof material, it's an important character defining feature for a historic property. Metal shingles, the successful replacement is new metal shingles. There are metal shingles that are still in production today, and there are options that do meet our Florida wind code requirements. So our staff analysis for these types of properties is generally that changing from metal shingles to something else would have a negative effect on the historic integrity of a property. So more history for you all to consider here. So in May 2022, the board gave staff direction that we can administratively approve replacement of historic metal shingle roofs with new metal shingles without having to come to you all. They also gave direction that the board would consider applications on a case-by-case basis to replace metal shingles with light gray dimensional asphalt shingles, preferably with an economic hardship attached to that application to justify that change. We also have been in contact with our colleagues at the state. They reiterated that the best option is in-kind replacement, but supported the idea of using something that resembles the original in color and shape if an economic hardship is going to happen with the replacement of metal with metal. So unreasonable economic hardship, it is defined and laid out in our historic preservation ordinance and our land development regulations. So basically, no decision of the DRO, the HRPB, the city commission will result in an unreasonable economic hardship to the property owner. And so that's not just, this is going to cost more, but this is going to cost so much that, this property becomes unusable, or I can no longer live here, it's unsafe, that sort of thing. So you all are vested with the authority to determine if that unreasonable economic hardship exists. That's why we have that affidavit that was submitted by the applicant that goes through all of those criteria that are provided in our ordinance for you all to consider. So if you all find that this request does meet those criteria for the economic hardship, then you are tasked with finding relief for it. And the relief that the board established in May of 2022 is to use a dimensional light gray asphalt shingle, which is what this applicant has amended their request to do. So they are requesting that due to their application for an economic hardship, that you all would approve the use of light gray asphalt shingles as a replacement roofing material here. So the request itself, like I said, generally we find it not to be in compliance. Like I said, metal shingle to metal shingle is the best option.
Right.
But should you all determine that replacing the roof with new metal shingles would cause an unreasonable economic hardship for this property owner, we've included conditions of approval to address that, mitigate that visual impact by using those light gray asphalt shingles.
Can I ask a question? So every time somebody wants to go from metal shingles to asphalt, they have to prove economic hardship?
No.
The board asks that they would submit that. Part of the reason why the standards for those metal shingles are a little bit extra high is that they are somewhat rare to still be here in the city. A lot of them got replaced over time. So there's limited examples of them that still exist here. So that's another part of the reason for trying to protect that.
If we could, we will.
And this is a contributing structure, which also
Right.
factors in. I believe the applicant is here tonight as well, if you would like to speak to them or ask them any questions.
Oh, I have another question.
Yeah.
You said the way we were supposed to determine economic hardship was that the structure would be unsafe.
So I sent you that definition
Yeah.
earlier today by email, so I can pull that up for us right now, but you would use the criteria that were provided from the ordinance, from our historic preservation ordinance and in your staff report to determine whether or not it meets.
It just sounded pretty drastic.
So an economic hardship is a somewhat major thing. It's not something that Lake Worth Beach is unique in having. An economic hardship is something that's, legal standard beyond just our city.
I mean, it would sort of sound like hardly anybody would be granted an economic hardship under the definition that I heard you kind of
Unreasonable
elaborate.
economic hardship is a very high standard.
Yes.
Annie, I have the email that you sent me on Monday. Would it be helpful if I read it or want to keep looking?
Here, we just have to scroll through our long list of definitions here to get to it for you all. Right, so unreasonable economic hardship. For historic preservation purposes, an onerous, extreme, and exceptional economic burden that would be placed upon a property owner by the denial of a certificate of appropriateness or similar burden which would be imposed on a property owner by conditions of approval which the HRPB or City Commission may seek to place on granting a certificate, which burden deprives the owner of all reasonably beneficial use of or reasonable economic return from the property, in accordance with the holdings and reasoning set forth in U.S. Supreme Court decision Penn Central versus New York City. So, like I said, this isn't just Lake Worth Beach. This is a Supreme Court level, definition. So you would be finding that replacing with metal shingles would deprive the owner of all reasonable beneficial use of their property.
Well, it just seems to me then we would hardly ever be saying that. And it sounds like we have been saying that.
So since I've been here, there's only been, I believe, one other economic hardship case that was heard late last year.
Mm-hmm.
So otherwise, somebody coming up here with metal shingles has to put metal shingles on.
Yes.
It's 2.5 times the cost.
Sir, can't. We'll call you up if anybody else.
And this board, as you said, a couple of years ago, made that decision, not the state. About
What?
metal shingles.
No,
He said something to that effect.
no.
So the board gave direction regarding
Yes.
what staff can approve versus what should come to the board.
Mhm.
We reached out to the state to confirm that they would be in support of the ability to replace with an asphalt shingle in the case of an economic hardship, and they agreed that that would be an appropriate situation.
But getting that, like she said, getting the economical hardship is almost non-existent.
Well, it's your job to determine if there is an economic hardship.
That's what we came up with 2-3 years ago when we gave staff the ability to do that at that point. Anybody else?
Can we hear from the applicant?
Sure could. Sir, you need to state your name, raise your right hand, and you can proceed. Sherry has to swear you in.
You swear and affirm testimony you give truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
And state your name, please.
Christopher Pope, 623 North Wilson Street, Lakeville, Florida, 33460.
You had a question? Oh, go ahead, sir.
I just think it's unreasonable to call it an economic hardship and base it on some definition that is not realistic. You guys are asking me to put a roof on that is more than double the cost. I can't afford to do that. And so I have to have no replacement because I can't afford it. You got, it's either a $10,000 roof or those roofs, last time I quoted it, which was about a year ago, was 25 to 27,000.
For the metal shingles.
Yes.
Right. That's why we gave the staff authority a few years ago to put asphalt shingles because of this situation.
Right.
Right.
So, but based on that definition, it doesn't sound like it would be granted to me unless I'm listening.
We're
incorrectly.
allowing you to, we can vote to
Okay.
allow you to
Okay.
put three-dimensional shingles on. No, and we hear it all the time.
It's just very emotional to think that somebody's gonna try to make you pay so much more money for something that you can't afford.
That's the reason we did all this. We are, we are not Palm Beach as a municipality. I don't know how else to say it,
Okay.
but we know the big cost difference between the metal shingles, the cement tile roofs. A lot of times we get the mid-century homes. We have a young family or an older couple. There is a big cost difference between the cement tile and asphalt shingles. So that's why this all came to be. So as a board, we can grant that. All right, that's where we were. So anybody else? Questions, please?
Yes, Mr. Pope, how long has the house been in your family? Late 90s. You say in your affidavit that you were not aware of the historic preservation guidelines regarding roofing. Is that my understanding? Is that correct?
House was purchased.
And at no point in time did it ever come up that you were in historic district subject to regulations and guidelines?
Not
Thank you.
And looking at the pictures, you've been at this for a long time trying to get this roof replaced. It looks to me like it should be leaking.
It's not. I had originally asked to do a standing seam roof.
Right.
That's also why this got delayed.
Right.
because I was trying to do that
Okay.
at the first attempt.
Yeah.
And couldn't do that, so then I had to start again.
Yeah.
And the house was a whole mess. Here we are.
But we're here now.
Let's get it.
All right. Anything else from the board?
Yes, Mr. Pope, in reviewing all the materials that were presented and also had an opportunity to take a look at your economic hardship application, which was very thorough, much appreciated. I'm confused about the purchase price for the house. I see three different prices. One was $1, one was $10, one was $100,000. Could you clarify that for us, please?
I purchased the house. It was in my mom's estate, and my brother and I are part of the estate. And so I purchased the house from the estate for $100,000.
Would you know why it would say $10 or $1 in any of the documents?
They do that when it passes deed through family. Like if
Mhm.
you were to give the house, they have to put a dollar amount. So that
Mhm.
customarily they'll do $10 or $100 in the tax records that you'll see.
But your position is you paid $100,000 for the house. So why would it be 100,000, 10 and not 100,000?
That's just how it gets recorded.
Standard language in deeds
Thank you.
recognizes that, $10 and other valuable consideration. The way you can really find what the purchase price was for a house is by calculating the documentary stamps on the deed, which doesn't really show in the language of the deed, but that's one way to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, sir.
Okay.
All right. So y'all understand as a board what we can do and what we did and all that. Okay. All right. So we need to hear a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve HRPB project number 23-00100138 for a certificate of appropriateness for roof replacement with asphalt shingles due to unreasonable hardship, economic hardship application for the property located 623 North Ocean Breeze, based on the competent substantial evidence in the staff report. and pursuant to the City of Lake Worth Beach land development regulations and historic preservation requirements, along with the conditions of approval, which are stated in the staff report.
Very nice. I got a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, passes unanimously.
Good luck.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to recuse myself for the last case. Ed, you're it.
Okay. Wait, who was the vice chair?
Nadine, but she's not here. Congratulations
It's you
on your
tonight.
appointment.
Oh,
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Miss Mayor. Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Bob.
Sit here and sit in the back room. We're all done. Sit here. All right.
Happy Valentine's Day.
So, Historic Resources Preservation Board Project number 23-001-00211. Consideration of a certificate of appropriateness for construction of a new accessory dwelling unit at 118 South J Street. The subject property is a contributing resource to the Southeast Lucerne Historic District and is located in the medium-density multifamily residential MF30 zoning district.
Thank you, sir. Here we can see where the property is located at. Again, it's a single family residential. Next slide. So this picture was grabbed from Google Street View. This is from 2022. This is a wood frame vernacular architectural style. It was built in the 1920s. Originally, it was built also with an accessory structure, a garage, but that was just demolished in the 1960s to create another ADU. That project never went forward, so we have this now. Next slide, please. This picture was provided by the applicant. This is from this year. And then if you can go back to that slide one more time. Then there's made some slight changes to the structure, and these work were not permitted. So there's an open court case for these. So moving forward, we would like to have these resolved before we can approve the ADU. Yeah.
Sorry, really quick to clarify, those unpermitted work will have to be resolved before the ADU is permitted. It doesn't have to be resolved before you all make a decision tonight.
Thank you. So segueing back to the ADU, this is the site plan, proposed site plan. Again, we would also like to note that there's some issues with this, like the parking doesn't meet the LDRs. And then because of some unpermitted work, there's some improved structures or surfaces that are not shown on this. So we will come back to this again a little later. This is a rendering of the ADU. It's a Mission Revival style. You can see it has a flat roof, rounded parapet, has a 3/1 single hung windows, a vertical pane panels. Thank you. Vertical panel door. If we go next slide, we have like the elevations here. We have the elevation, west and east elevation. One thing that staff would like to comment is on east elevation. If you can see the window, the single light window looks slightly different than the rest. So staff proposes to have it look identical to the others, or at least add muntins to make it look a little bit more cohesive with the other windows. Next slide, please. These are the north and south elevations, and here on the north elevations, there's a blank wall. Here also staff proposes to add a window or like a full, window to for shutter to just break that wall. Next slide. This is the proposed floor plan. Next slide, please. So as we mentioned earlier, because of some unpermitted work and because the site plan, there's some inconsistencies with that, we couldn't do a full zoning review for this, but staff is confident that this could be resolved at staffing level and that they could meet the LDRs moving forward with the ADU. So we can definitely assist them. So this shouldn't be a problem. Next slide, please. In terms of historic, we've seen that, like the principal structure is wood frame vernacular, and they are proposing a Mission Revival ADU. And this is common in the historic district. It's not unprecedented. And then for an example, we have 310 North Federal Highway, which has the same configuration. It was built in the 1920s. So this is not unique and it's common in the historic district. In terms of massing and scaling, it is pretty consistent with the neighborhood and also with historic districts. In terms of wall finish, like, texture stucco is also common in the architectural style. This is something that we see. The roofing, same thing. It's common to see a flat roof with parapet for mission. The only thing here again is the window. As we mentioned, full light window needs to be either look similar with the 3/1 single hung windows, or either add muntins to sort of replicate that look. And then also that blank wall to add like a faux shutter or like a window to kind of break that up a little bit. So staff recommends approval with condition for the new accessory dwelling unit, including resolving all code violations before permitting the ADU, compliance with the LDRs, especially with the parking and permeable and whatnot, and then changing the window design and adding like a window or a faux shutter on that blank wall. These are the conditions of approval. Next slide, please. And these are the motions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan.
Question about the windows. Is there any issue with them being possibly too close to the property line? Is that why they wouldn't have a window?
It's a good question.
The property is required to meet, current setbacks for all of that, so it wouldn't be a fire separation issue.
Okay.
We have, the board previously has approved the use of, like we were saying, faux shutters so that they don't have to, change any design elements to put a window in, but it does break up. It's not just a blank wall and, mechanical elements. So that's why we brought that up. It can be a little easier for them. They don't have to do any sort of redesigning to accommodate an actual window.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the fire issue, but if there's no fire issue, then.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my question is, just for my own edification, they seem to be two different styles of house on the same property, and that's okay?
Yes, that's okay. There's precedent, like we mentioned earlier, for at 310 North Federal Highway. The original principal structure was in wood frame vernacular structure. And then the accessories dwelling unit was in Mission Revival. So, and those were both built in the 1920s.
Yeah.
So they're precedent.
So most of the time we do see people, try to stick with the same style on a property, but this particular combo of wood frame and Mission or MedRev is something that's, kind of unique to Lake Worth. So if people want to continue that into the modern times, we're totally okay with that.
Anybody else? Is the applicant here?
I believe so, yes.
Yes, were you sworn in? If you're gonna speak, you should, yes.
We swear from testimony that will be true, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Your name, sir, also? Thank you. Do you have any presentation or anything that you want to tell us, or
as far as supermarkets from Minnesota, so let's chuck it up to, he's from out of town, so he really didn't understand what the process is, but that's what I'm here for. I'm gonna have him out to the rest of the issues that we can resolve. But we're happy that staff approved the ADU. I think it's a unique project. It has a lot of benefits, and it's gonna be really good for Mr. Brock, as far as financially, what we do with that property in terms of his financial future. For him as well. And, he wants to come down 6 months out of the year and be fishing here. So, and that's where he like to stay, so we're gonna be able to help him correct that for you. So thank you once again.
thank you.
I have a question. What is the purpose of the ADU?
December.
And the staff has made recommendations, including, there was one aspect where the total square footage of the property needed to be 400 square feet, and you have it at 446. The staff recommendations and the modifications would be achievable for you in this project?
Percentage of the original.
I mean, they're gonna have to make it be that way anyway, because they gotta move it.
I mean, yeah, absolutely, we can, you know.
Because it's
It's-
too
it's-
far over the line anyway,
Right.
so by the time they moved it back, they'd be where they need to be.
Is it a 50% of the area of the primary? Is that?
For an ADU, the maximum allowed accessory structures on a property is up to 60% of the area of the primary structure.
Oh, okay.
And it would be meeting that.
Okay.
Yep.
I think I saw it at 61, am I correct?
So
That's close
there is,
enough.
A shed, if that would be removed, that would be all good. Otherwise, they'd scoot it down a teeny bit.
So have you reviewed with staff the conditions of approval and then everything seems reasonable to you, like that's doable? The potential conditions of approval that,
Yeah. I tried to do it right, but that's another issue. The city needs to be more civil with the people that are pulling permits, and they need to work with the people that are trying to pull permits, and not punish people that are improving their property. I was told it was gonna take 6 months to get my windows approved, and they were leaking. They told me to call them shut. When I went in there with these code violations, their response was, it's gonna cost you a whole lot of money and take a whole lot of time. They didn't even look at the house that I bought and the house that I have now. I've improved the city of Great Birth Beach, and I'm being punished for it. So I have to devalue my property to be code compliant. They are, I don't know if they're flying drones over my property or not, but I've got 2 rows of pavers in the backyard that are that need a permit and a licensed contractor to do it. I am a licensed contractor. I had to have a permit to pull up existing weeds in my front yard. These are the code violations. I need architectural drawings done by an architect for planter boxes. Some of these things are ridiculous. So what I have to do to be code and to be compliant is I have to devalue my property. And so that this, I don't know that you would think the city would have bigger problems than to fly drones over people's house and have them pulling off too. And there's been no sympathy, nothing, but they treated me like a child. I'm a 60-year-old man. I left the meeting crying. I tried to explain to people I wanted to pull these permits. I wasn't allowed to. And you know what? This is not the place for people that are trying to improve the city.
Mr. Featherstone, do you have any evidence that the city's flying drones over your property?
How are they gonna know I have 2 rows of pavers in my backyard?
I'm going to encourage you to be careful about making allegations about something like that. It's very serious.
And just to circle us back, we're only here tonight to talk about the ADU. That's it. That's all that you guys have the authority to make
Right.
decisions on here, just the ADU.
Okay,
Treat me like I'm a friend.
I understand. Thank you, sir.
thank you.
You have new windows? Any new windows going there? New windows, there were new windows. I mean, new openings. Is there all these existing openings?
No, this is.
The ADU is completely new construction.
New construction, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. I didn't understand the elongated window.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can I
That
make a
makes-
motion?
Now that made sense. Okay.
Do we have any other comments from the board or questions?
Oh, public.
Any public comment? Do we have any public comment? Do we have a motion?
I move to approve HRPB project number 2300100211 with staff recommendation conditions for construction of a new accessory dwelling unit at 118 South J Street based upon the competent substantial evidence in the staff report and pursuant to the City of Lake Worth Beach land development regulations and historic preservation requirements.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously.
Yes, sir. Good luck.
Anything else, Don? There are no planning issues for tonight. It doesn't look like there is anyone else here for the general public comments.
I see everyone is heading towards the door.
I want to hear them. What our chances?
You do
Whatever.
have- Oh,
Good night, Ms. Mayor.
Good night, Ms. Mayor.
Thank you for coming.
What I brought up last time. Go ahead, you finish it.
okay, so we do have just a couple quick department reports, mostly heads ups for you guys. There will be a joint PZB, so that's the Planning and Zoning Board and HRPB workshop coming up in the next few months. Most likely not before April, realistically, but just keep an eye out. We'll email you guys to coordinate that date. The other heads up is that May is National Historic Preservation Month. So we do, a little bit to celebrate here in the city. We will have a proclamation from the City Commission, and then we also do an annual awards ceremony. So that call for nominations will go up next month. So you can start thinking of nominees. You all will be in charge of voting for that. But
what are we voting on? I'm sorry.
sure, yeah. So our awards, we've got 3 categories. We've got compatible rehabilitation or addition, new construction, and then we've also got a bit of a broad category for people or groups that have made a positive impact on preservation in the city. So most of the time it's mostly projects. Those projects have to be completed, obviously, and not be more than 5 years old. But the public can nominate, staff can nominate, you all can nominate for these awards, and then we hold a little ceremony in May to give those out.
And you get submissions for these? I mean, do
Mhm.
people know? Okay, so you're not at a loss for scrounging up submissions.
No, we always have a few that we, nominate as staff.
Okay.
Our board usually nominates a few, and we do, we have our team over in leisure services posted on the city social media and all of that as well.
Okay, so, but they're all coming in front of your faces anyway, right?
Yes, they do come before us
Okay.
before they get to you to make sure they meet the basic
No, I mean,
qualifications of-
even to submit, I mean, anything that's would be eligible has probably come before you for approval.
It's
and
come before us or
assistance.
before,
Yeah.
the board. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering too. Good question. Yeah.
So those are staff's 2 department reports for today.
Great. Now you say that you're gonna publicize their workshop.
Yes, the joint workshop would that get any?
All the
sort of
home.
additional-
What's the general
Yeah. it'd be-
subject of that workshop?
It would be a bit of general, going over again the roles of the boards, some details on, I think we might do a little bit of board ethics again, not the full smorgasbord that we did before. It's still being kind of drafted between staff and William exactly what we would do with that, but we just wanted to kind of put that on your guys' radar. We'd let you know the exact, topics and everything beforehand.
Would that typically,
I mean,
We would do that.
what do you say? I didn't hear that.
Sometimes, because you all and the Planning and Zoning Board are combined the LPA. And so sometimes, in the past, we've gotten you all together as to consider land development regulation amendments and whatnot. Sometimes you consider them as separate boards. Sometimes you've been brought together to
That's-
consider them at once. So I would
that's
ask
what-
if there would be anything like that coming up.
That's what I'm interested in the most, the reconfiguration of the ordinance, because, you know, I gotta tell you, and I've been here almost 70 years, and I'm in and out of municipalities. Our ordinance is really behind. It's behind. We have to catch up compared to other cities. And I know we all saying we're going on the same state guidelines. But I'm gonna tell you, this board is not the board. And this board, what I do in my real life, based on West Palm Beach and Delray, a lot of historical preservation work. And I tell you, I see stuff that we don't even come close to even considering.
I don't know what you're saying, Ed. What do you mean?
We're just behind. We need to refresh ourselves. We need to have new ordinance. We need to come up really up to date.
Like, can you give an example?
Okay. Say for instance, a person's home has a wooden structure, all right? And that home the elevation is really, really low. So the first thing comes to mind, we're gonna demolition that house. Wooden structures in Delray are in West Palm Beach, and now you're not allowed to demo. You have to save a certain percentage of that house, which is almost 75%. Do we have that in our, do we have that? No, we don't have, it's something simple. Do we have that? For that preservation, historical preservation? No, we don't have that. We don't even come close to that. But in Delray, we have done 3 homes in Delray. I've been involved with 2 of them. West Palm, I've been involved in 6, raising those there wooden structures to the proper elevation, to the proper floodplain level, and building construction around it, concrete structures around it. That's only just.
So to make sure I understand, so you're saying we don't need to, because we're an historic section, we don't have to raise because of flood issues, right?
You don't have to demo because of flood issue. If a wooden structure, you can raise.
Right.
Yeah, you can elevate. We don't have
We
that.
could do that, can't we?
Nope, we don't have
Yeah.
that.
We could.
You
we have not
you
gotten
don't
requests
consider it
to
because
do
you don't.
that.
What?
We've not gotten requests to do that.
Is it in the guidelines? Is it in your guidelines?
So we would have to take into consideration a raising of it, or a raising of a structure, but it wouldn't be immediately disallowed in any way.
That's just one thing. That's just one thing. I just pick out something simple. There are if I rack my brain and just sat down and wrote it down, there's 20, 30, 40 things we don't do. If you're interested in historical preservation. But you know, I talked to that guy Payne. To get him in from Minnesota. We really need to be more flexible and be more honest and be more come up with new ideas. Refresher. We need to refresh ourselves.
Is there an opportunity for people to, for the public to have input on? Because I too have heard people's complaining about how they're treated when they get cited or whatever. Is there an opportunity, is there a workshop or a forum, any kind of ability for people to be able to give input on those kinds of things? Like how decisions are made and, you know.
Well, I mean, that type of thing is really a customer service staff issue. So you would reach out to the supervisor of the department for wherever that person works, or to the city manager.
Okay.
Or the mayor.
You know, you guys say something
Okay.
that really grabbed my ear. Your boss, Mr. Waters, he sits back and he draw up what the board needs to know, yada yada yada. But you know, that's fine. We'll go along with that. We need to have what she just said, public participation. We want to know, hear from the public and what they want. They actually paying the bill. And if that's not in our state guidelines, then we need to go to the state and say, look here, this is what our citizens of Lakewood Beach have requested. How can we implement this?
We'll ask Annie to go through a little bit, if you know, because I know you weren't here at the time, but what the process was developing the city's historical guidelines. I know of every ordinance that the city adopts, which, you know, all of your land development regulations, every amendment to them, there is a lengthy public engagement process. They come to this board, they come to the planning and zoning board, they go to the commission for 2 readings. There's a lot of availability for public input, but the historic preservation guidelines went through even more.
Yeah, like Elizabeth said, I wasn't here when it all went through, but we've still got it in our files and I breeze past it every once in a while that there was, you know, we've still got the documents of the public outreach that happened as part of creating the current design guidelines. There was a lot of public outreach. People had lots of opportunities to come, discuss it, get their input, you know, charrettes. Yeah, there was a lot of public feedback. It wasn't just something that was dropped into everyone's laps from somewhere else.
But didn't Frank Palin start this program? The historical preservation, and then Waters picked it up. Wasn't that the way it went? That's the way it went, wasn't it? Am I not?
I'm not aware of.
And now the people who participated in those their charrettes, they're not they probably don't even not even living. I'm probably so old they don't even remember.
So that was again for the design guidelines in 2018.
Yeah, right, where we at? 2020.
Well, that's 6 years ago, Ed. I mean, come on.
That's 6 years ago. But you know, we should refresh ourselves.
We're all 6 years older than we were in 2018, but you know.
I know.
That's another conversation for another day.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do the design guidelines get periodically reviewed and updated, or is that something that's not really automatic?
Right.
So these design guidelines are the first ones that the city's ever had. They were created to help make it clear for the board, the public, everyone, what we have in the city, the styles, what would be appropriate replacements, all of that. So they have not been updated since then. I would have to check and see if we do have a mandated schedule for when they would be updated, but this is our first ever city design guidelines.
Well, I ask because I know that the LDR is automatically needs to be updated periodically, right? It's a state requirement, I think. So what? Oh, the comprehensive plan.
Comprehensive plan has
Okay.
to be updated every 7 years. but
7
the
years.
Land development regulations do not have a similar time frame.
That doesn't automatically follow?
No.
Oh, okay.
But
When is that? The land development.
the land development regulations there's no specific time frame for updating the land development regulations, but the city does that on several times a year, making amendments and updates to the land development regulations, and you all will see all of those. And you have one coming up in a few months.
So you guys are pushing to have a workshop on this here, public workshop?
So, the workshop that we were talking about was not like a public workshop to totally redo the land development regulations. It would be a workshop with you and your sister board to talk about issues that affect your boards. So the land development regulation amendments that come before you guys periodically are not a total redoing of the land development regulations. It's making incremental changes over time to address things that come up, you know, in using them day in, day out.
And how do we get to the refresher? I mean, for the public, public input and refresh the ordinance. How do we get there?
That is something that is above my pay grade. That would be William or commission. I don't have the authority to instigate an entire refresh of the land development regulations. That would be the director of community sustainability or members of the commission would be the place to direct that sort of question.
Any more comments?
yeah, I mean, I just, just again, in response to what you said, Ed, we're not Del Rey, we're not Boca. Let me just finish, please. We're not Del Rey, we're not Boca. We have certain commitment to the city to adhere to the guidelines, as I said earlier, whether we agree with them or not. So to say, well, Delray does it this way and West Palm Beach does it that way, we're really unique and we have a really unique town. That's why we're all here, because it's a really unique town. And these guidelines are meant for, some of these structures are 100 years old. And yes, things that were applicable 100 years ago may not be applicable now, but that's not for us to decide or judge or to, to necessarily, denigrate,
Right.
I think it's just, I'm not opposed to, having a process to take a look at to see, what point in time that some of these get revised and some of them could well be revised. But again, I think it's outside of our role.
I understand it, but somehow I read in the book, it say press toward the mark. What is the mark? The mark is just what we just got set aside right now, and that mark don't improve, that it doesn't move the line. If you press toward the mark to perfection, that's something to work for. If you look at our town, and trust me, I ride this town all the time. Sometimes I cut up through lakes, up to lakes, like the federal highway too busy for me. And there is nothing symmetrical about this town. You got some of this and some of that and some of the other and some of this and some. I mean, there come a time where we got to get it together. I mean, and the only way we're going to get it together is we have refreshed new ordinance where people can live, what the people, taxpayers of Lake Worth Beach can live with. Windows and doors, new design of if it doesn't meet the historical plan, then they don't have to come here, which they probably don't. But we're trying to get ourselves ready for the 21st century. We still with historical values, still with the historical integrity, with architecture integrity. We can do this, but we got to have a plan.
That's not our role here.
I know, but the thing about it, but I know that you may say that's not our role, but our role. But we right now we're in the role. We make it as we go along. Oh yeah.
If I may, so I just was checking the state guidelines, and for certified local governments, there is no requirement that you update your guidelines so often, but it's just that when you make changes, you have to submit them to the state in so much time. So, Mr. DeVoe, what I would suggest to you is, because you very clearly are very passionate about this, and
I've been here 70 years. I'm ready for
feel that there are some changes that need to be made, and I encourage you to come and sit with staff to go through the changes that you think that need to be made, and maybe there's something that has been overlooked that already is in the code or in the guidelines that they could make sure that they point out to you, or if there's not, then maybe that's something that they can.
I'd be glad to sit down with staff. I'd be glad to sit down.
I think that's
Look
a
at-
really excellent suggestion.
Thank you.